Charles August Lindbergh Jr. was kidnapped on the 1st of March 1932 around 9 p.m. from his nursery on the second floor of the Lindbergh home near Hopewell, New Jersey. He was only 20 months old at the time. Parents, famous aviator Charles Lindbergh and his wife Anne, were alerted by Betty, the child's nurse, around 10 p.m. that the child was missing. The premises was immediately searched, and a ransom note for $50,000 was found on the nursery windowsill. The New Jersey State Police were notified and took over the investigation. Mud was found on the nursery floor, but footprints found under the nursery's window were impossible to measure. 2 sections of the ladder had been used in reaching the window. One of the 2 sections was split where it joined the other, indicating the ladder broke during the ascent or descent. There was no blood stains or fingerprints anywhere in or about the nursery. All the employees were questioned, and Charles Lindbergh reached out to everyone possible in order to negotiate with the kidnappers, but all attempts were unsuccessful. On March the 6th, 1932, Colonel Lindbergh received a second ransom note demanding the increase of the amount to $70,000. The note was postmarked Brooklyn, New York on March the 4th. On the 8th of March, a third note was received by Lindbergh's attorney, stating they did not want to negotiate with the Lindbergh's appointed member, but rather wanted a note placed in the newspaper. On the same date, a retired school principal, Dr. John Condon, from the Bronx, New York, published an offer in the Bronx Home News to act as the middleman and to pay an additional $1,000 ransom. The very next day, Dr. Condon received the 4th ransom note, stating the kidnappers approved of Dr. Condon being the middleman, and this was also approved by Colonel Lindbergh. March 10th, 1932, Dr. Condon received the $70,000 ransom money in cash and started payment negotiations via newspaper columns using the code name Jaffe. On the evening of March the 12th, Dr. Condon received an anonymous phone call, and then a taxi driver delivered the 5th ransom note, which the taxi driver received from an unidentified stranger. The note gave instructions on where to find the 6th note. The note said Dr. Condon needs to meet a guy named John at the Woodlawn Cemetery, where they discussed the payment. John agreed to supply proof of life. The baby's pajamas and a 7th note were sent to Dr. Condon on the 16th of March. On March the 21st, the 8th ransom note was sent to Dr. Condon, which stated that the kidnappers wanted complete compliance and that the kidnapping had been in planning for a year. The baby's nurse found the child's thumb guard, which he was wearing at the time of the kidnapping, near the entrance of the estate on March the 29th. The following day, the 9th ransom note was received, and then the 10th note on the 1st of April. This one had instructions to have the money ready by the following night. The 11th note came on the 2nd of April, again by a taxi driver, which told him where the 12th note was. The 12th note told Dr. Condon where and when to meet John that same evening, where the ransom amount was dropped to $50,000. Dr. Condon handed John the cash, who gave him a receipt and the 13th note explaining that the child could be found on a boat named Nellie near Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts. However, the baby was not found there. Sadly, on May the 12th, 1932, the badly decomposed body of baby Charles August Lindbergh Jr. was found by an assistant on a truck about 4.5 miles southeast of the Lindbergh home, 45 feet from the highway, near Mount Rose, New Jersey. The head was crushed. There was a hole in the skull, and some of the body members were missing. The coroner's examination determined that the child had been dead for about 2 months and was killed by a blow to the head. A reward was put out for the successful arrest of the kidnappers, and all the banks were put on high alert for the ransom money. In October 1933, the FBI was finally given jurisdiction in the case. Literally thousands of tips came in, and each tip had to be followed up, but they were all dead ends. On May the 2nd, 1933, some of the gold certificates used to pay the ransom turned up at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, but despite all their efforts, they couldn't locate the person that deposited them. And then again, in August and September 1934, more gold certificates turned up in Yorkville and Harlem. This was the breakthrough they needed. The movements of the individual was then tracked and was able to trace the person passing the gold certificates. The description matched John that Dr. Cordon met with during the negotiations. On the 15th of September 1934, a filling station attendant was suspicious of a man who paid for fuel with a gold certificate. He wrote down the license number, which the investigators later tracked down to Bruno Richard Hauptmann, who stayed in Bronx, New York. Mr. Hauptmann was taken into custody on September the 9th and questioned. Mr. Hauptmann had some of the ransom gold certificates on him, and $13,000 of the ransom certificates were found in his garage. He was also positively identified by the taxi driver that delivered a ransom note. Dr. Condon identified him as John, and he owned the Dodge sedan that was seen at the Lindbergh home the day before the kidnapping. Hauptmann's handwriting also perfectly matched the writing on the ransom notes. Experts positively ID'd Hauptmann as the person that wrote the notes. Hauptmann's trial started on January the 3rd, 1935, and lasted 5 weeks. The case was based on circumstantial evidence. Tool marks on the ladder matched tools he owned, as he was a carpenter. Wood in the ladder matched wood used as flooring in his attic. Dr. Condon's phone number and address were found in his house, and his handwriting matched the ransom notes. On February the 13th of 1935, Hauptmann was found guilty of murder in the first degree and was sentenced to death. The verdict was appealed but was denied, and on April the 3rd, 1936, Bruno Richard Hauptmann was electrocuted. No one knows the exact events that led up to the murder of baby Lindbergh. Don't forget to like, share, follow and subscribe for more true crime stories. Thank you for listening. Stay safe. Goodbye.